Welcome to the first ever Bloody Hell call. Today we're going to be looking at some issues regarding amateur football during the lockdown. We're going to be speaking about, first of all,
Union Berlin legend Michael Parensen signing for Landesliga side Polar Pinguin.
also,
We start plans for amateur league football.
and finally,
I love the link. We're also going to talk about the ways that clubs are fundraising during the pandemic.
fantastic. Hope you enjoy it.
Love it.
Bloody Hell!
Bloody hell, mate.
Sips.
All right, guys. So what's been going on? What we got going on? We had recently we were looking at, as in just the four of us, quite a few people were reading about this news with Polar Penguin, no? That I found interesting. I didn't actually know who this guy was before because I have no concept of Bundesliga or Union.
So, someone who knows nothing, can I just clarify? Polo Penguin have signed a guy, an ex-Union player.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know that Westy follows our Twitter account.
I just wanted to clarify it. Because if the listeners are like me, then they're not going to...
That's a solid point, mate. Context, background. Yeah, this is true. It comes in quite handy.
Point. Yeah. So Polar Pinguin have signed Union former player and club legend Michael Parensen, which is exciting because, I'm probably the only real Union fan in the bloody hell circle, but I think we're all kind of Polar Pinguin fans deep in our hearts. They're a very lovable club. And this is, you can tell it's a big signing because I looked at their club profile on Transfermarkt, and Michael Parensen is the only player who has a profile picture on Transfermarkt on their club roster. So he's a cut above everybody else.
Can't argue with that.
Fair enough.
The acid test.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to know, and I think Ben, you could maybe give us a little more context from the Polar Pinguin perspective and what they sort of expect from him. But as an Union player, he's definitely one of the most beloved players in the club. He joined in 2009 when they were in the third division, and they assigned him to kind of help push towards their promotion to the second Bundesliga. And he played almost 250 times for them. He was kind of like frequently the captain. He plays usually as a center back or sometimes as a left back. And it was, I think, one of the most heartwarming parts of last season, Union's first season in the Bundesliga, when, first he made his debut when he was 33 and rightfully never expected to ever play in the Bundesliga. And then he actually scored in the Bundesliga, and it only half counts because it's against Dusseldorf and they're terrible, but still a Bundesliga goal at 33 is a Bundesliga goal at 33. So he's and also just by all accounts, a great dude and a kind of leader for the team, but he retired and was, I think, still is working in the Union front office. So this kind of came out of nowhere, at least for Union fans.
His story kind of sounds like it could be some kind of movie, but a soccer movie if only anyone was actually capable of making a good soccer movie. And I'm saying soccer because I want to define from football, which is American football, and there are loads of good American football films. So this is difficult. But this whole thing about signing and then scoring that one goal in the Bundesliga, it's very Rudy,
It's pretty Rudy, but yeah, they would definitely add some really stupid crap to make it more dramatic. Like on the day of his Bundesliga debut, his sister falls off a cliff or something. You always need an extra Hollywood element to make it that much more dramatic.
That's doable. Sounds doable.
Yeah.
But the perspective of Polar Penguin, for those who don't know, Polar Penguin are a Landesliga club. If fresh in the Landesliga, they were Bezirksliga, last season. So this season is the first in the Landesliga. They formerly a Freizeitliga team. It's a history that a lot of people who know non-league in Berlin know. They're a very written about club, but they went from Freizeitliga, so basically, from Wesley's perspective, the best form of football in Berlin. and then they joined the regular league structure, and then they got promoted successively, other than one season, I think. And they find themselves in the Landesliga, and now with a Bundesliga player. It's cool. It's a great. I mean, obviously, I assume he has a friend there or something.
Yeah, I heard he already trained with them in summer, like occasionally training with them in summer when this was still possible. It's now
Yeah.
months ago, but
Yeah.
in summertime it was possible to do training in Germany and also to do games in lower leagues. And then he was already training with them, so that was, I think, now like the next step to join officially the team.
I mean, I had brief contact with Polar Penguin about it, and they did mention that, because I said, they want to come and speak about it, and they seemed not so eager to speak about it too much, even though they already have spoken about it a lot. I think they wanted to kind of put a cap on that, and to get the impression that he's not going to be playing very often. He's going to be mostly training, and if he plays, it's going to be an extra. I think they want to make sure people understand that he is just primarily training, and he might play the occasional game, which is understandable, I suppose. I mean, I read an article. That's not even true. I read the title and the subtitle of an article, and I think it was basically saying that he wanted to still play football, but he wanted more than the life that football can offer. So it kind of makes sense in that regard as well. He keeps fit and he keeps himself open maybe for other options, other clubs coming in. But it's great for Polar Penguin. They get a little bit of press coverage, which they're very good at anyway. They market themselves very well.
I mean, to be clear, when you say they're talked about a lot from Berlin amateur football perspective, that means like we tweet about them every 6 months, right?
Yeah, it's good to put that into context, because when I say they're talked about a lot, it's because it's the only football I pay attention to. I never watch amateur football. I have no idea what I'm talking about. But like for a person like me, where anything above the Regionalliga is essentially Champions League anyway, then then but yeah, okay, fair.
I mean, anybody watching or listening to this probably falls into the demographic that you're describing. So
unless someone accidentally clicked on the link, then yeah, pretty much.
And please stick with us, please.
Yeah. And
I like the idea. So I was gonna say, I like the idea that he actually he does still want to play football, but like every centre back that I've ever played with, he's basically pissed off and wants to play up front. So he's just gone. Polar Penguin are going to use him as a number 9. You know that, right? It's the only explanation.
Yeah. I mean, it is, Ben or Andy, maybe either of you know, like, we talk about Polar Penguin a lot, and they've, like, they're a lovable club, and they're kind of on this nonstop climb, but, like, do they have any actual aspirations of long-term success? It seems like they just kind of accidentally keep getting promoted, but that at some point becomes hard to do. What's sort of behind it?
I mean, I'm not sure, to be honest. I think they attract always like-minded people. I think maybe one of the key to their successes. They're kind of like, I was speaking to, I think it was might have been Nico, like one of the players. I think he plays for the second club now, but he's the second team now. But he's quite key in the organization of the club, or he's one of the more known players, put it that way. And he was saying that he moved from one of the players basically moved from Hamburg, and he was speaking to someone, I want to play football, and they knew a friend, and because they have like a good circle of friends spread across Berlin, they're good at attracting new players, And I think because certainly at this level, team spirit is quite an important thing, and socializing together. They're just good at that, and they get a good fan base. If you go like watch Polar Penguin play, they draw a crowd. You'll easily go to like Berlin Liga matches and have a smaller crowd than you do at Polar Penguin, who are, like I say, we call a Landesliga club, but essentially have been there for half a season, and that half a season is 9 games at this point. So I think it's just in regards to the ambition. I mean, I suppose that they're not crazy enough to be saying we'll be playing Bundesliga in 3 seasons, because that would be mental. But I'm sure they wouldn't say no to further success. But I think Landesliga it's a difficult league. It's a really hard league because you do have clubs that have experience of Berlin Liga and above, So I think
how did those 9 games go for them there? Do you know?
that's a good question.
I think they're towards the bottom of the table. Andy, do you know more specifically?
No, unfortunately not. But generally, I think it's that's kind of the bar which you can't cross anymore. Like Landesliga, sometimes maybe Berlin League, because clubs like FC Internationale made it to the Berlin Liga without paying their players. Berlin Liga has all paid players actually. They all get at least some kind of money. And I think that's the same with Polar Pinguin, that at one point you can't go higher. And I think Landesliga is usually like the roof for these kind of clubs. I know, they're all different, but this kind of concept that maybe carries you to Berlin Liga for 1 or 2 seasons, like Internationale made it a few years ago for I think 2 years or 3 years, but that's it. I think that's like, because it's quite professional already.
Yeah, I imagine Parison's not playing for less than at least 100 million euros a season, but we'll try and confirm that.
Oh, there we are. 4 games.
Yeah, this is the thing. They've played 4 games. The bottom's in the relegation zone, 3 points. It's hard. Wrong one. It's difficult to really say how they're doing this season,
Yeah.
But I think, as Andy says, this is pretty much a limit unless you really start to look at it in a more professional perspective, because it gets real,
Yeah.
And then we talk about like sponsors and stuff and investors and stuff. Otherwise, it's very tough to make it to Berlin Liga. All these Berlin Liga teams have quite a big amount of money involved sometimes. If you look to Mahlsdorf and stuff, they pay actual money to their players, and
crazy.
I think you need a very, very different infrastructure to get to there actually and stay there. Yeah.
It's just sorry, skipping back to the point with Parenson, is his name?
Yep.
What I did find interesting, and I mentioned this on our WhatsApp group, was that if you consider the signing when people are like, oh my god, it's really cool, it's a really funny story, it's very nice. If that was quite a few other clubs, it would be regarded in such a different way. Like if it was someone like the former Berlin United, if they'd done it, it would be looked at it for me in a very negative way,
Yeah.
It would be very, oh yeah, here we go again. This kind of just trying to do this and get, and we'd be the same on our Twitter account. We'd be mocking them, saying they're just trying to get attention and stuff, So the intention might be the same. They might just be trying to get attention, but because it's a nice club that everyone likes, it's, oh yeah, it's so good, I love it, So
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Some clubs are just meant to be hated.
Sorry?
Some clubs are just meant to be hated. It's just the way.
Very true, man.
The difference is maybe that they don't try to reach Bundesliga with him, when former Club Italia, Berlin United, when they signed Rockenbach da Silva, former Red Bull Leipzig player, that was with the intention to reach, I don't know, Regionalliga or the second league, or I don't know where they wanted to go actually. But I think that's why this was like covered in a more mocking way, because there was a clear intention to that.
Yeah. And they're honest about it as well. They also say, look, he's not going to play very often. He's just here to train. That kind of makes it, I think, a bit more.
That's I think the big difference is, one, or at least we're assuming, but it's pretty clear he's probably not getting paid for this. So he's kind of like a one club player, really, who just sort of wants to keep playing. Whereas usually it's like a player who played in the Bundesliga 10 years ago, who have been at like 30 stops in between now and then, and every single one is a clear cash grab. And then they go to the like 6th division team that just got a new investor, and they're like, oh, follow Ronnie to glory. In a couple of years, we'll be in the Bundesliga. And then 2 weeks later, he like drop kicks someone in training and leaves forever, like breaking his contract.
There's quite a big history of this, though, isn't there? You get like the random superstar dropping down because do you remember Falcao? When he joined, I don't know if you remember this, Ben. When he was like 50, he joined like Garforth United or something, and played like 3 games for them in like the 8th tier in the UK. I don't even know if Falcao spoke English.
I mean, I remember seeing Chris Waddle play against Whitley Bay. You know.
Yeah. There's quite a few examples.
Yeah, I think it's less in. I hate using the expression modern football, but it's less so in modern football because top players tend to be paid so much that they either go into punditry or management. The ones who are masochists go into management. The ones who just want loads of money, they go into punditry. You know.
Actually, Patrice Evra, who has gone into punditry, he played for my team in London about 6 months ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he trained with them for a week and played 1 match. There's a good clip on Twitter of it. And it was basically because he wanted to get fit for Soccer Aid, the kind of charity match where he had to play against Robbie Williams in midfield or something like this. Like,
yeah.
So there's different reasons behind.
If you have to get fit because you're going to be marking Robbie Williams, you got serious problems, man.
Oh my god!
I think I can mark Robbie Williams at this point.
So we should ask Parenson if he's been, if there's any ulterior motive there in that respect.
Soccer Aid 2021.
Yeah, man.
Bloody hell, mate.
That was essentially the next topic, right? And what's happening with the leagues and as we just saw, Polar Penguin have played 4 games this season. 4 games. That's not a season. If anything does restart, how many games are they actually going to get out of this season? It's not like it was last season where they played like 3 quarters or something. They could kind of say, okay, so we finish it off, and if they did anything other with some leagues, if they did anything else other than call it void, then to me it would be crazy, to be honest.
But this is why am I correct that everything below the Berlin Liga is only playing each other once anyway?
Yeah, but
at least that's the plan. Yeah, I mean, that's the plan.
It's obviously difficult, and you don't know what the restrictions will be if it does come back.
Yeah.
But they've at least given themselves a chance, I guess.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Like my team we've played 5 games. We've only got 7 left or something. So, but yeah, I mean, of course, if you have no idea if that's going to happen, and then the question is, Ben, as you say, like, what do they do? But I don't know.
I mean, if you look at, I always find it maybe it's a bit easier for the Freizeit-Liga because you tend to play a longer season anyway because obviously you haven't got that regular match structure, you know?
Yes, in the same way. I know what you mean. I thought you would say because it doesn't matter. So
no, man, I would never say I love Freizeit-Liga. For me, it's
no one cares. So yeah,
it's awesome.
But we are kind of all used to 2 weeks off and then playing a game.
Yeah, it's an unusual league in the Freizeit, but it's difficult to say that the Kreisliga is structured, but it has a more standard structure to it, you know. But I mean, you think like now the lockdown's until March, right? It's been extended to like 10th of March or something.
7th, yeah.
It's not like they're going to say, okay, 10th of, well, obviously, in my opinion, it's not like they're going to say it's the 10th of March or the 7th of March. Everything just goes back to how it was. It's going to be like a slow restart. And I don't think Kreisliga is at the top of that pyramid of what's important, you know?
I mean, we'll see. If you have Karl-Heinz Rummenigge at Bayern calling for footballers to get the vaccine before the rest of society, maybe that'll kick down to the Freizeit League.
On any level.
Everyone that considers themselves a footballer in Germany gets the jab, and that's a lot of people.
I'm actually quite optimistic that they will restart at least training in March.
Okay.
Because that seems to be the plan right now. I just know it from Brandenburg FA, like the state surrounding Berlin, that they plan to do like a restart of training in early March when the lockdown is now supposed to end. And then have 2 weeks of non-contact training, so to say, or contact-less training. I don't know how to call it in English, but in German, like
Shadow training or something like this.
yeah, kontaktloses Training, yeah. And then after 2 weeks of that, then 2 weeks of normal training, and then we start the leagues in April. That's the plan by now. But that's also linked to if you the condition is if you reach this 35 of incidents, 7-day incidents, and now we are at 55 or 58 or something like this. So I think it is possible, but not yet sure.
I mean, I think it's important to remember as well. I forget which leagues were doing this. Was it again all below Berlin Liga? They were like each game week was over 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, I think it is everything below Berlin Liga.
Yeah. So again, if you say okay, we restart in April, and each team only has another 8 games to play. The league that's still like 16 weeks of football. Am I wrong? Am I going crazy? Yeah.
8 times 2 is 16.
Yeah, I'm making
Is
sure.
that the question?
I'm making sure I wasn't doing something ridiculous, as in sometimes they do it over 2 weeks, but still.
Yeah, I mean,
it's important to double check myself, man.
if they have, if they have limited time, then I guess they'll have to start looking at playing games midweek and things like this. But I don't know what the original schedule looked like in a lot of the leagues. I know that we had. And in fact, the schedule for the Freizeit Liga had a whole month off in January and most of Feb anyway. So I don't know what winter break had been already built into the schedule. So actually, they might not be as far behind as they seem. I don't know.
But in the perspective of the clubs, though, I'm curious as to how many clubs actually would want to finish the league, given the implications of what it might mean. I mean, certainly the clubs. I mean, again, could they again say no relegation for a second season? Because again, if you look at a team that's played, 8 games of football and is getting relegated based on that, with this huge break in the middle, to me, it's just sorry, that's mad. It's mad. And then we were discussing before this what Tasmania were talking about. So Tasmania are currently sitting top of the league, right? And they played 9 games and they're 5 points clear. Now, obviously, if they play the season to completion, Tasmania aren't doing the half season because they're in the Oberliga, right? So they're having a full season anyway. So it might well be that they're going to get promoted anyway. But it would be, of course, a lot more likely if they restart now and play less games or whatever they work out. So the implications for Tasmania are, of course, what can they afford? Because obviously they're not having the income that they're supposed to be having this season based on ticket sales. If they got promoted to the Regional Liga, then they would need to change the infrastructure a little bit. Maybe do they have floodlights there? I can't remember, but get the pit.
They get floodlights at the moment. They got recently something like this.
Okay.
There is this project.
But I know it's in other clubs. So there's a lot for the clubs to think about in a very short space of time. I mean, some clubs, even at the best of seasons, when they go to Regional Liga level, they just don't apply for the license, right? Because they can't afford it.
Obviously, the parachute payments from the Regional Liga are not worth the trouble.
Absolutely, yeah. The 25% of the previous season being €250 just doesn't cut.
Yeah. It's not the money spinner that it should be, really, is it?
So I think it's just the point is the implications for the clubs is unless you're a mid-table club, it's a lot. I mean, of course, again, for a lot of clubs, they're going to be happy. They're like, great, we're going to play like 10 games and have a crazy season, but we're going to get promoted anyway. So if you're going from the Kreisliga to the Bezirksliga, maybe they don't care, you know what I'm saying? But there are quite a few clubs where it does make a difference. And if we
especially once you get to the semi-pro level.
Yeah. But if you go back to the example we used before of Polar Penguin, first season at Landesliga, really hard league. They're sitting third from the bottom. They potentially had the chance to play 4 more games to save their season, and they've worked so long to get there. Yes, it's the way that everyone's in the same boat. I get it, and everyone has the same stuff going on, but it just seems like a very unsatisfying conclusion.
Yeah, I think they will not count the season if they don't make it to a half season. I think that's minimum. I really think so, because if they don't make it to like everybody played everybody else once, then they will not count the season, because that will be ridiculous. But yeah, as you said, I mean, if you have only played 4 games, then it's another 14 or 13 games to play. I mean, you have to start in April, otherwise this gets tough to do, you know. I mean, with Oberliga, it's something else again. It's only like 10 games left or something like this. That's possible. I mean, 10 games left, if you restart in mid of April even, that's totally doable. You are done by beginning of June.
I would wonder, don't we have the Euros this year now?
Yeah, I mean, probably. That's still not definite, but that's going to be tough for these Oberliga players playing out the season in the beginning of summer. Then immediately they have to go to either Tokyo for the Olympics or to the Euros. I mean, we talk about fixture congestion a lot, but it just doesn't seem doable.
That's the modern game, mate.
I would like to.
Game's
there
gone.
must be quite a few players who are, well, not quite a few, but at least one player who's playing at a low level and maybe is a fringe. I don't know. When we did this, we did an article about this on our
Andy Barron, man.
Andy Barron, don't mock it, man.
He was working in a bank in Wellington on the Friday, and he flew to South Africa for the World Cup on the Saturday.
Exactly, and this is just the
Impossible,
Euros.
Dave.
I meant it totally seriously. My heart is with the players who will play in the Euros who are currently in the Oberliga.
Oh man, yeah. I think it's one of those things where we can, of course, we have a conversation about it because it's interesting, but we don't know. We have no answer. We just express, I don't know, concern, or we speculate.
But isn't that what football podcasting, amateur football podcasting is? It's starting off saying you don't really know anything and then talking for 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
About that topic.
Yeah.
Bloody hell! Bloody hell, mate.
Tebe have a kind of interesting and creative way of selling tickets to raise funds, which we saw a lot of in the first lockdown, but we haven't really seen much about that. And that's one of the things that I'm generally kind of interested in seeing. One, you know, what is going on now? What are clubs doing? And two, how does football sort of approach this more broadly? Just because immediately in the first lockdown, like a lot of cases just broadly talking about politics or society or football from the Bundesliga down to the lower level, it was all about, okay, we need to rethink things, or what can we do to make sure that this survives? And then we saw all these, you know, sort of exciting fundraising campaigns to end out last season. And then we see almost nothing now, but these clubs must be really struggling. Most of them aren't even playing ghost games or whatever, where they can sell their fake tickets online. I sort of wonder financially, how is it that we haven't heard more about clubs being really threatened by bankruptcy or what's really happening in these scenarios?
I mean, I think for the most of these clubs, playing like without any fans would be much more dangerous in terms of financial things. But if you don't play, I mean, you don't pay the stadium usually. I don't know how it is with every of the 20 clubs in the Regionalliga Nordost, of course, but usually you don't pay the city for the games because there are no games, so you don't have any fixed fee you pay per month or something. And then the players, I mean, they get paid by this by the subsidies from the state. I mean, they get the money from the state, as every other person too who can't do his job or her job. So I think at the moment the expenses are quite low for these clubs. Like I said, I can't speak for every of them because I know that there are bigger clubs in these league step who suffering because they have to pay their stadium and stuff. That's why they already play in Regionalliga West since 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 months or something like this. They didn't really stop, you know, because these clubs have stadiums with 20,000 seats and stuff, and I'm sure they have to pay a lot of money. So that's why they can't stop doing it. But yeah, I think in Regionalliga Nordost it works for a lot of clubs, at least somehow. Yeah.
But it is true what you said about the club doing a lot less whilst they're not playing. I mean, you mentioned the TB thing. You can maybe speak of that in a second because I'm too sure. But I remember in the first lockdown we had BFC Dynamo. We spoke about how they're actually doing, actually doing something because they were doing these gig and Corona matches. These like virtual games, and you saw advertised quite a lot. And I had one of my couple of my neighbors, they're BFC fans, and they were going out and they were doing the whole socially distant and watching these virtual games, and it was bringing in some money for the club. I see a lot less of that. I suppose maybe that is fatigue for the entire situation, or I don't know, but it's a fair point. It seems like the interest is dipped in doing anything other than just watching some actual football.
Yeah.
The first, that's how we maybe in life as well. The first lockdown was perhaps, of course, very difficult, and had a negative impact on jobs and on society. But there was like an element to it that was a bit different. So, it's like let's see we can make the best of this situation.
Yeah,
and,
there's
everyone's exhausted, man. It's like I'm just
Would the sorry.
No, go ahead, Messi.
I was just going to say, would the clubs get any kind of government support directly? Because I'm thinking, I don't know the details, but my club, when I asked, how are they surviving without people coming, spending money in the bar and this kind of thing, I got told because it's kind of like a social organization in a way for the community, that there is some sort of funding, but obviously there has to be a cut-off point for that, because Red Bull Leipzig aren't going to be getting that. So so I just wondered if anyone knows if there's any direct funding that maybe a club of a certain level could get, or do you think it is just...
But didn't some clubs in the UK come in the fire for that, like Arsenal and some huge clubs were...
That's what I mean, like Premier League, Bundesliga, I wouldn't expect it to be available. I'm more thinking about your local neighbourhood club who maybe basically operate 3 men's teams in a youth section, and they're in the Berserk League or something. It's not going to be, they're not getting big.
I don't know. It's maybe based on cost, like you provide like an overview of what you have outgoing, and the government subsidize it. But I don't know about that, to be honest, mate.
Okay.
Sorry.
Just know about the money for the players, but not about direct money to the clubs. No.
But what is it that Tabor actually doing? Because I've read a lot. I've seen a lot about this 10,000 fans thing. But to be honest, I've never actually bothered to read so much about it. What are they trying to achieve there?
Yeah, so the idea is, I think they're called the 10,000 fan initiative from Tebe, and the idea is that the first post COVID, or at least I guess a post-COVID match that they can actually sell all tickets to will be a sellout. So they're already selling tickets, and the tickets are good until 2023, which depressingly maybe is optimistic on their part for when we might be done with all of this. By then, the New Jersey strain will be wreaking havoc all over Europe. But you can buy a ticket, and it's good until 2023, and they're just trying to sell 10,000 tickets. But even there, it's a great idea, and I got one myself just to help the club out, and I'm sure when matches are back, I'll go to a game anyway at some point, even if it's not that first one. But I think you do see exactly what you're talking about, Ben, this sort of fatigue that has seeped into all forms of life, but also, from fans and from the clubs themselves. They're trying to sell tens. I think they've sold 1,700 now in a couple months, where we saw with BFC Dynamo, or I think Lok Leipzig, tried to sell out 120,000 virtual tickets at €1 a piece, and Rot-Weiß Essen also played a game against FC Corona. All of these initiatives that were really popular and felt kind of fun and brought people together. Now it's like, even when the ideas are good, they seem to be rare, and they're less enthusiastically picked up. Unless people just think, well, I'll buy a ticket ticket, but I'm going to wait until we know games are actually coming back anyway. What's the point of getting it now?
On the flip side, it might be that when we see some kind of restart in amateur football, there might be a nice initial boost of ticket sales. I mean, when I say ticket sales, I mean like gate receipts in general at amateur football, because people just want to get out. They've been walking down like with the streets with nowhere to go and nothing to do, and then all of a sudden they'll be like, "Oh my god, events are actually happening. There's other humans, and I can come within a meter of them and just go." And I mean, to be honest, of course, loads of Kreisliga clubs actually, obviously you don't have to pay to get into them at all. You can just walk through and there's no payment, so it makes very little difference there. But going there and drinking a beer by the side of the pitch, all that kind of stuff, it might just inspire people to get out. And I'm sure it won't last forever. These things never do. But the initial spike in sales once quarantine hits once quarantine is disappears, might be something nice. But
there was quite a lot written about that actually in the UK in August, September time, because just of the kind of funny way it worked out, where they could have events of less than 1,000 people could go ahead, for example. And a lot of football fans who would normally be at Premier League matches were basically going to their local non-league team for their kind of fix, I guess. And so there was a couple of articles written about, would it open up, or will it show the non-league to people that would not normally be exposed to it? I mean, I don't know, but it was just the way the regulations lined up. Really, it was a bit of a fluke.
Like I said, I'm sure it's not going to cause an overhaul on how people watch football, but one or two more fans maybe. It's what we always say. Oh, a couple more fans, and then
it would literally double attendances if we have one or two more fans.
True story, man. All right. It was
I mean,
I enjoyed the chat. I mean, it was nice to see and discuss these things. So thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Bloody hell! Bloody hell, mate.
Go fight.
I was waiting for it.